Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Thursday, March 7th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card, we are starting our day off with today. I'm not surprised to see this card. It's the same card that we saw yesterday, continuing into today. We have here our Knight of Wands in its upright. And what we like about this right now is, again, we're seeing that some of that intensity, right? What happens energetically when we move through moments of pressure, when we're allowing ourselves to experience that, it can lead to energetic breakthroughs. And so we're seeing specifically right now for a lot of the masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. This is allowing for the facilitation of pathwork in the relation of trying to come into union with feminine. Now, for masculine energy in the divine union frequency, what we appreciate about this right now is one of the things that we saw that was potentially creating a little bit more of that frustration energy over the last few days, even in the energy of the divine union frequency, was that need and desire of masculine to want to lead forward, running to rush ahead, if you will, right? I told you that's almost like that energetic egg test, if you will. What do you do when you have that, like preciousness? This is the masculine wanting to dash forward very quickly. Feminine wanting to move in that more conservative modulation, wanting to move at a much slower pace. But that was almost the amplification of, again, both energies wanting to go towards the same directionality, just having very different ways of going about it. Being able to recognize that breakthrough space, seeing someone that is energetically on the same pathwork of you. That is now creating a space or place for masculine that is almost creating that modality of moving any of that frustration into creative breakthroughs. So that is going to feel like communication. It's going to feel like ideas. It's going to feel like inspiration. This is what we saw that we are appreciating right now for a lot of the masculine energy that is trying to meet the energetic needs of the feminine. And even if that's requiring a lot of the masculine energy to pull back right now, this is that moment that almost feels like the flourishing, because this is that moment that masculine being able to curtail on your own needs for the sake of another is creating that moment of empowerment for the self, because that is that moment, that point of moving into a state or space of personal self-regulation is now creating a moment of allowing for energetic breakthrough. Like we're seeing here that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, it's almost that moment that is, I'm going to say in a way, it's almost like that moment that you may say, I feel blessed, if you will, that I didn't necessarily go with that first instinct. I feel glad that I didn't just advance forward, because now that I think about it, right? It's almost like now that I think about it, I've seized upon that. I recognize now. It's like that moment that, again, is like recognizing and finding that ability to find that pathwork place. And we see now, even now in the divine union frequency, this is allowing the masculine energy that space or place of feeling like they're allowing themselves that ability to be energetically, emotionally open. And what happens when we move in the space of being energetically open, vulnerable, but we also move forward? This is moving into that space of creativity. So being able to channel that frustration that may have happened or occurred in terms of needing to pull back to meet the feminine counterpart's energy is now allowing almost like that flourishing moment to come through, because that is that moment that like inspiration is dawning, if you will. So this could be a lot of productivity in the space of communication or even inspiration and passion right now for the masculine energy. Feminine energy in the divine union frequency, you may be seeing and recognizing this to a certain capacity. I will also point out that this isn't just a moment or modality where masculine is conforming to meet the feminine. Feminine is also pushing out of their own comfort zone. Feminine is also rising to the challenge to meet the masculine. I told you this is a coming together moment. So for the feminine energy, this is that moment of feminine being able to almost try to see the masculine moving in this way, appreciating and recognizing the masculine's own ability to come into that space of productivity and creativity, rechanneling anything that was feeling like frustration into something that feels like it is more productive, is essentially encouraging, amplifying, and building that sense in the feminine that they can do the same. So just as the masculine is pulling back a little bit to meet the feminine, this is a feminine that is feeling inspired by seeing the way that the masculine moves. So these energies right now are, again, finding each other, modifying to accommodate each other, but not pushing each other far past one's own sense of comfort. This isn't that type of energetic movement of saying that I need to change for someone, so much as you're feeling inspired by another. Masculine and feminine energy that are in the divine, they're coming into the divine union frequency. A lot of the energetic breakthroughs that feminine may be having right now is as a direct result of feeling the energetic difference between feeling like the need, or from the past experiences of having to pull on a masculine to try to come into alignment with you, versus the feeling of a masculine that wants to move in the same direction as you. So for a lot of the feminine energy experiencing this, this is a creating, and that's why I even see now, if there's that moment of feminine energy having that sense in coming into that vibration that almost feels like this amplification of anxiety, this is that moment that we're almost seeing is creating that energetic breakthrough for feminine energy, recognizing and realizing the difference energetically in what it feels like when you're moving in alignment with a masculine that wants to move in that same directionality as you. It creates a perfect counterbalance in terms of anything that you didn't experience prior to this point. So that is that breakthrough energy that's happening for a lot of the feminine energy, and that is coming in alignment with a masculine, that it doesn't feel like you have to kind of pull them or that you're being pulled. It's like you're feeling like you're just moving in the same vibration of them, like you're matching, you're feeling that energetic match to your own frequency. Masculine energy in the divine union frequency, this is potential coming into divine union frequency. This is a lot of that alignment of same, because for masculine energy, this is that moment that may feel more like a sense of a mastery of self. What have we been seeing right now for a lot of the masculine energy coming into the divine union frequency? This recognition of intentionality over desire, being able to recognize and focus on this. This is the pathwork of a masculine energy that feels like their accomplishment coming into the divine union frequency is very much one about them learning a better understanding of their own self, right? So that feeling, that amplification, if you will, is almost feeling that sense of being supported by a feminine energy that allows you to feel both vulnerable and strong at the same time. Masculine and feminine, and it's creating that like excitement. It's creating that profoundness. And we're even seeing now for a lot of the masculine energy, this isn't just kind of moving things in the directionality that you aspire and desire them to. This is you coming into that collaboration, that communication moment, desiring to work with the feminine to be able to build forth. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is that breakthrough energy that is amplifying that sensation of effectively coming into a state or space of healing. And I have to stress that if these are energies that are coming back together right now in separation, this is that moment that the feminine is feeling the validation point. And I even saw here, there may have been some examples of a conflict from the past that would have led to a separation point. This is the feminine energy feeling that validation potentially of, again, a masculine energy that's approaching them at this time, that has an ability to communicate effectively through a point of conflict. This is that masculine energy that, again, the feminine energy is recognizing and seeing that ability to have that hard conversation, that ability to take something and to, again, channel frustration into productivity. So this is either feminine energy in separation, seeing a masculine that's coming back to them right now that's truly been on a healing journey. And what feminine appreciates about the masculine in this modality is this isn't feminine feeling like this is a masculine that's trying to conform to meet the feminine. This is almost masculine, feminine seeing this, and masculine being like, I'm doing this for me. I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this for the sake of coming into alignment with you. This is me having found myself. And doing this for me is like almost that feminine energy, feeling the validation point of a masculine that's truly on that journey of understanding themselves, that is facilitating and allowing for an ability to come into divine union with the masculine energy. While for the feminine energy that is moving away from a masculine energy right now, that they're effectively hoping will facilitate that ability for the masculine to come find themselves. This is feminine potentially moving into a space or place of starting to have new conversations with masculine energy that feels like it is in better alignment. Masculine energy, and I told you if you've been following along, this is like what we see as the inevitable conclusion here. Masculine energy in separation right now, if you are going through the same process, one of the things that we see right now that's been happening for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, this has been feeling like a deep challenge of the personal self. For both of these energies, the possibility of coming into union with someone here, for the masculine, this is why I tell you right now, for the masculine energy doing this work right now, this is an enormous triumph of self. Because if this is masculine energy that had a feminine that was trying to come towards you too much, but you saw them trying too much to conform to meet you, trying too much to change their own integral self to come into accommodation point. If you release someone energetically saying, I'm doing that because I love you and I think that this is what's best, this is the masculine feeling like you have channeled your own power of passion, that you're not just letting your desire take the wheel, as it were, because you're almost saying to yourself, my desire for someone does not trump my empathy and care and love for someone. So that ability of recognizing this right now is almost creating this energetic breakthrough for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, that affirmation of self saying, I know I found through this journey my ability of loving another has helped me find a mastery over myself, has helped me find that power within myself, knowing that it's not just about what I desire, but being able to intentionally choose where I move in that space is now allowing a lot of the masculine energy to have that moment of being very energetically open while also considering options, that point of creativity, that power of intentionality coming into play. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy on this journey of separation, this is again almost that feeling of finding oneself on the way. But that's not just inconveniently finding oneself. That's making difficult choices even in separation that are helping you get to a better sense of one's truest intentions. And this is a lot of masculine energy moving forward from that point with the intentionality, the vision taking the lead. And that's either facilitating points of healing with past feminine energy saying, I understand now. I understand now where the problem was. I see it here. Or this is masculine leading forth with that beautiful power of self that was amplified in your own ability and feeling like you're doing the right thing coming into a point of separation. Second card in our 5-card spread for today. Wow, flying out of the deck. This card should also look familiar. It's the same card we pulled yesterday. So a continuation of the message of yesterday. We have here our 8 of Swords in its reversal. Because what we're effectively seeing right now is, again, and I have to say, for a lot of the masculine energy that's going through this moment in separation, what feels really beautiful about this moment is this could be most articulated potentially in a masculine saying, I was in a prison before this. I was in a prison of my own desire. I was in a prison of my own need. I allowed that need to drive me forth potentially into spaces and places that weren't necessarily what was that point of intentionality. So we see even now that for a lot of the masculine energy that is experiencing this recognition point of allowing one's intentionality to go forward, not necessarily, but also not losing focus in terms of your own passion. It's allowing for these spaces of deep consideration, being able to channel that desire, to channel that need with intentionality of purpose, is potentially allowing a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to feel that moment of inspiration, right? That's that breakthrough point, if you see. And how is that breakthrough point coming through? You didn't just inadvertently stumble upon it. You went through difficulty and you worked through that moment of allowing your intentionality to be expressed as opposed to your need, right? So for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this is that moment of feeling like you may be coming into a deeper sense of self-awareness, and that is leading you forward, not just following your desire where you feel like whatever that inevitable conclusion point is, but utilizing a lot of care and intentionality. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy in this vibration right now, this is that moment that may either be allowing for a breakthrough point, going towards someone, returning back towards someone. But like I said, we are seeing that these are not spaces or places of someone trying to pull someone back into something. This is almost someone trying to come back towards someone to say, I understand now. I understand. I understand what you were seeing in me that I could not see in myself. I see it now, right? That's that personal moment of internal transformation that leads to that energetic breakthrough point. Or this is masculine energy that is taking that deep value lesson from a difficult experience, but having made the correct choice, made the choice that allowed one's intentionality to dominate over your sense of passion, that is now allowing you that energetic moment of like feeling that moving forward here, like it's like a step into the unknown, but you're letting your intentionality guide you. Feminine energy right now in separation, you are also doing this work, because what's really beautiful for the feminine energy right now, even if this is a feminine energy that's moving away from a masculine, the reason the feminine energy is putting separation points here for masculine is this is the feminine energy almost saying to masculine, I aspire you to find this in yourself. I aspire you to find this in yourself. I want to see you understand these things for yourself. And this is, again, much like we saw the masculine having to do that hard work of saying, I want you, but not like this. This is feminine energy saying, I'm not just going to hold on to you in an unhealed place, because I know holding on to you in an unhealed space isn't going to facilitate your own healing journey. It's just going to pour concrete on you being able to stay in this modality. For the feminine energy experiencing that, this is the feminine energy that feels like that act of love is almost saying to the masculine, I look forward to your return. I look forward to the moment that you understand why we must go through this, because hopefully I will find you down that road. I will find you when you're able to find me in that same space. And for a lot of the feminine energy that is moving forward in this way, this is the feminine energy coming to that state of deep karmic healing, saying to themselves, it is my deepest, firmest aspiration that you find that for yourself. But I also recognize that I cannot wait here for that day to come, which is why we see that that is that karmic clearing moment that a lot of the feminine energy is now having, that feels like almost like that amplification of joy, because you've made that choice that was difficult, but you also know that that is allowing for the aspiration of hope, that may be allowing for that future moment where something may come into alignment. So again, difficult choices that allow for deep energetic breakthroughs. And what's happening for a lot of the feminine energy that's in this modality right now, there may be new potential energetic connections that are happening at this time, meeting the energy of the masculine that's going on that same journey. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. A lot of this is feeling like the acceptance of a lot of energetic breakthroughs that may be potentially occurring at this time. Because as I said, once you move into the frequency, a lot of this feels like that perceptual shift of looking back at anything that occurred prior to this point that helps amplify and recognize things from a different perspective. So the perspective shift right now that's occurring for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency, it may feel a little disorienting. It may feel a little disorienting. Because that's the difference of feeling like, again, the energetic alignment of moving with someone that's in alignment with you suddenly creates a stark contrast to anything that feels like it was more of that pulling, like tug of war energy, as it were. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy in this modality right now, a lot of deeper understanding of self that is coming in, because what is happening for the energy in this modality? Is there blame entering the picture here? No. This is not energy coming into the divine union frequency that is looking at things and saying, that was that person's fault. That was that person's fault. This is the energy coming into divine union saying, this is the accountability of energy saying, those difficulties, some of them were facilitated by one's own determination point and also trying to engage in that type of energetic pull, right? That's that difference of coming into alignment that suddenly feels like that moment of easement and surrender, but that you also suddenly recognize once you're there, that's that moment of saying, I have also understood now. Like, it's like, you're like, I understand now because I'm no longer moving in that vibration of trying to pull what's not for me towards me. Like, that's almost the energetic moment of someone having a breakthrough and seeing not just the energies that play around them, but also the way they were moving that may have facilitated or caused some of those circumstances in the past. Not moving from a state or space of too much personal blame, not holding oneself through that, but almost saying, I understand now. That is the breakthrough of energetic understanding. And that is one that, again, if you're moving in vibration with someone and it feels energetically easy, it's also the moment of saying to oneself, you've done a lot of work to be able to facilitate an energetic connection that allows for that level of easement, right? So for masculine and feminine energy right now, coming in the heart of the divine union, this is why we see that this is a bit more energetically difficult right now, because what's happening for the energy in the heart of the divine union frequency, this isn't allowing pathworks of like personal breakthroughs. A lot of those personal breakthroughs may have already potentially occurred. What's happening right now for the energy in the divine union frequency feels a lot more like that energetic spring cleaning, as it were. And a lot of that, it does feel very energetically heavy, because that is that moment of potentially, I want to say, this is like that energy of like shaking off what doesn't feel like it's unnecessary right now. It's like that shedding energy, if you will. Why? Because that's the transformation of self that's potentially occurred since being in the divine union frequency. Recognizing and understanding that being in that vibration, it changes you. You're not the same person that you may have been when you first entered it. And that ability for the energy right now to assess, to recognize, to observe how one has changed, and being able to help facilitate that change is the gift of the energetic frequency. And while it may be creating those moments right now that we see are difficult, this is that moment that almost feels like that energetic release in terms of saying to someone like, I appreciate that you push me out of my comfort zone. I appreciate, but I'm not too far, okay? You see what I mean? I appreciate that you're putting that like firm hand of support even as I challenge myself, because that is that moment that is almost that amplification point of saying the reason I do these things is because you challenge me. We challenge each other, but in the ways that we appreciate and love that sense of challenge, right? That's that energetic feeling, right? I want to say that's that gentle encouragement that we give each other. And we don't do that by facilitating and saying, I'm going to push you into the space that you know is your cozy, comfy spot, even though I know that that's not what's best for you. It sometimes means that we need to help energy confront those parts of themselves that is hard for them to see or hard for them to observe. So we see even now a little bit of that like energetic, like gentle, like that to a certain extent is now feeling like someone saying, thank you. Thank you for doing that, because I see that that's not you potentially pushing me away from what I aspire to. It's you being able to bring me back towards the aspiration of self that I am aspiring to. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, see, and that's the moment. This card should look familiar because we've been getting it upright for days. For days we've been getting this card upright. But this is that moment that is now finding it in its reversal. Does that mean that there's no conflict here? No, it doesn't mean that there's no conflict. It means that these are the moment of saying, thank you for the conflict. Thank you for the challenging space. Thank you for pushing me, but in a way that you're helping me find myself, right? That is that moment. And this is why in the divine union, we're seeing and saying that there aren't spaces or places. It's not that the divine union energy can't handle conflict. It's all about whether the conflict serves a functional, foundational purpose. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy that's in the divine union frequency, that feeling of breakthrough, that feeling of easement is almost coming into a moment of productivity, because it's almost the observation in the affirmation of what one aspires to change within oneself that is reaffirming a lot of the energetic commitment of the energy in the divine union. That is that moment that almost says, thank you for challenging me. Thank you for pushing me into that comfort zone. Why masculine? This is almost masculine saying, you know what? I'm really glad that you made me kind of pull back on something, because guess what? In the time that I had to pull back, I had like 10 other ideas of things to do. Thank you. feminine. Thank you for not letting me just like, thank you for almost like gut checking my gut instinct, because that ability to pull back has actually like now led to a flourishing moment. Feminine feeling the same thing to masculine, saying to masculine, you know what, thank you for pushing me a little bit out of my comfort zone. I did something I wasn't necessarily used to doing. I pushed myself a little bit harder trying to follow your lead. Boom, right? Look what happens. Look what happens when the energies are willing to come into a space of challenging each other, but thriving in that sense of challenge. So we see even now energetically something about that space or place in the divine union frequency right now is amplifying that sense of saying, let's keep going, let's keep doing this, let's keep making those accommodations, because this is finding that like ratio of challenge, but also productivity. Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency. This is now where it starts to feel a little bit more difficult for the energy and the coming into the divine union frequency, because this is giving me more of that energy of that aha moment. That aha moment that feels like a lot of personal breakthroughs that one is receiving in the moment that you're feeling the ease of the divine union frequency coming into play. It's like when you're in the space of something that is easy, then suddenly everything that wasn't easy takes on a different perspective. So we see even now that for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency, having a lot of that energetic breakthrough may be feeling a little bit like again, we even saw it was creating a little bit of that energetic overwhelm, but almost like that feeling of energetic relief here, because that's that cathartic moment of understanding mixed with that energetic feeling of peace, right? So those are a lot. We see here that even now that's a lot of that, like the last few days have been a lot of that, like overwhelming understanding that's almost like that realignment of self that potentially occurs when you find those points of energetic easement. So we see even now for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency, this may be kind of just like, I want to say this is kind of just like feeling like today, like one of those energetic moments of like riding a wave. For masculine, there may be a lot of feelings of passion, communication, and productivity coming into play. For feminine, enjoying that, being able to like move in a space or place of feeling that vibration of masculine, wherein again feels like you don't have to like pull against the current just moves with you. That feels very like, again, it feels very overwhelming when you're coming into it, but almost like that sense that like helps you kind of get that better sense of orientation. A lot of like orientation coming in right now for the energy coming into the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine energy that are in separation right now. This is that energetic clearing out of the karmic cycle from the past. But I have to stress, we don't energetically, and this is why I say like there's no such thing as like no karma. Everything's karma. Because what we're seeing here is this isn't that moment of saying, oh good, I'm done. I don't care about that person anymore. I don't care about that person anymore. Job done. I don't have to worry about that. No, this is the heart expanding moment that we see that a lot of the energy in separation is going through to a certain extent, in terms of saying to oneself, I'm holding a deep space for someone in my heart and the aspiration of where I hope to be able to meet them as I move forward on the journey. For feminine, that moment or that vibration is what is almost empowering the feminine energy to move forward right now. That's almost saying to someone like, I have all the energy of love in my heart for you. And I want you to be your best version of self. And when you find that best version of self, you know where to find me, right? So almost being able to do that right now, that is the feminine energy, feeling that sense of saying, I aspire for when that day is, but I am going to continue forward because I know that you exist out there. That future you is that way. It's not this way, right? So the feminine energy that's moving in that vibration, that's what the feminine energy in separation is doing right now. And what is occurring as a result of it? They're encountering energy that is doing the same thing, because this is a lot of masculine energy that was in separation that again made that hard choice of saying, I'm separating with all the love of my heart. I need to move forward from a state of authenticity and openness. If we're not in alignment, we're not in alignment. I can't be in a space or place where I watch you conform to try to meet me in that point of authenticity. A lot of this masculine energy saying my discovery of self almost requires me to come into separation here. But again, holding all of the space and love in my heart for you as I do so. Where is this energy now? That is the karmic clearing moment. That doesn't say, karmic clearing doesn't mean I don't care about someone anymore. It means that you're able to move it into a space that feels like that energetic act of love that helps you move forward. So we see even now that these energies coming into that sense of saying, I'm doing the right thing energetically, is what's allowing a lot of these new conversations, these new breakthroughs, these new energetic connections to start. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our 3 of Wands in its reversal. And what's difficult about this right now energetically, for a lot of the energy that's kind of going through this right now, particularly in separation, the hardest thing about this is the moment or potential feeling of saying, I know what I'm doing. I know that they don't know that what I'm doing, right? There's almost that moment here that feels difficult, because we see even right now that for a lot of the energy, both energies right now in separation, there could be that amplification of someone saying, I know I'm doing this for the right intentions. And it's difficult because I know that someone else can't energetically see that, right? This is what I mean with that energetic affirmation going, I hope the day comes when you understand why I had to move the way that I moved, or why I chose to do the things that I chose, because that is that energetic expression. And I have to stress here, this is why this is almost like that energetic act of love. This isn't putting on some kind of performative display of love, being like, look at the grand gestures that I will go for you. This is that silent moment of someone moving in a way that like almost recognizes and saying, I know they don't understand. I know they won't understand. I hope the day comes when they can truly see that even in this moment, I'm trying to do this as an act of profound love, as an act of profound care. Because there's this moment right now that we see is that energetic, like that is that energetic closure point. It's not saying to someone, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Like that's not like one of those moments. It's almost that moment of just saying, I have to surrender both the ability of what can be changed, but also the ability in recognizing that one can only move in integrity. And sometimes that act of integrity, the person that you're giving that integrity to may not necessarily recognize and see it, but hopefully the day will come when they understand and identify how, why you had to move in that way, that personal sense of personal understanding of how one is experienced by another, that is amplifying and saying, when they understand, they know where to find me. When they come into that sense of seeing, there's almost that sense of saying, I will know that day will come because they will be the first one to tell me. It's almost like what we're seeing here for a lot of the energy that's moving forward in this way. So we see even now, that is allowing for a lot of the energy and separation to come into these new breakthrough moments, coming into these new energetic connections. But again, it's almost that moment of saying and building in that space and saying, I went through something difficult. Why don't you tell me about it? Like that's that moment that is almost amplifying right now. And even that uncertainty for this energy moving forward in this way, what's interesting about this is a lot of the energy and separation here isn't necessarily doing so with the intentionality of meeting anyone else. This is almost energy that's doing this right now with that pathwork of saying, I need to do what I need to do for myself right now to try to facilitate that healing gesture. Well, congratulations. You're probably on the road to meeting someone very quickly right now, because look what's happening. You're making those difficult choices, but you're moving in a way that you're feeling like you're following your intentionality. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This is why we see that this is potentially a lot of that energetic moment that is being amplified either in new connections that are having that level or degree of easement, just naturally feeling like that something is happening here that feels like almost that inevitability moment of energetically moving with someone that feels like they're in alignment with you, while also potentially, again, this is the expression of some energetic healing that is potentially coming through. And what is happening with some of that energetic healing, if this was past situations or scenarios, this is someone coming back into divine union going, I've had a breakthrough. I've had a moment of personal understanding. I've had a moment where I understand now how I was standing in my own way, right? For a lot of the masculine energy coming into that, that's that moment of clarity where you look back on oneself and say, wow, I was standing in my own way. I didn't even see it, right? Well, you can't see it until you see it. So being able to recognize that A lot of this could be a lot of the masculine energy looking back on their own passion center and almost feeling like that triumph of self is saying, like, I didn't realize that me trying to like follow my passion center to the hilt was me standing in my own way. While for feminine energy right now coming into divine union, that ability of recognizing or amplifying, trying to bring past masculine energy into divine union that was only trying to follow their passion center, that's a feminine energy almost saying like that was a bit of that impossibility vector, because that's again that moment that feels like you're hitting that like energetic brick wall, because like you're trying to like move in like to please an energy, to pull an energy in that's only focused on pleasure, as opposed to looking in terms of the energy that recognizes the ability, as we said, of the energetic connections that are coming into space here, which is energy that recognizes that doing the right thing is not often doing the easy thing. Sometimes those are different things. Masculine and feminine energy that is in the divine union frequency, you already know this work well. You've already been on this journey. And this is why we see that a lot of this progression that is occurring right now in the divine union frequency is a lot of conversations or opening up of situations wherein you may be observing how much you've changed in the time that you've been in the frequency. So we see even now that is feeling like a lot of a breakthrough here, because it's almost that amplification of saying, were it not for the divine union frequency, I wouldn't even be having this conversation, right? It's like almost like one of those moments that feels like that point of empowerment, because that's ability of saying we have the ability to transform and change what is between us or what's with us, being able to come into accommodation of plans, being able to come into those slight modifications. Because why? It is that act of love to be able to recognize and identify that you're supporting the progression of another person's journey, while still being mindful of the fact that that doesn't mean that you have to kind of say, no, we have to stay firm on who we were when we first entered the energetic circumstances or situations, right? That is the elasticity of the divine union energy that is allowing for a little bit of this, like, I want to say, like we keep seeing, like a spiritual or energetic spring cleaning, like that shedding energy of what doesn't serve, to be able to come into that point of perfection. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our judgment card. So that's why we see this. What we love right now for the energy that is in the divine union frequency is, again, that recognition point. It allows for flexibility. It allows for adaptability. The divine union frequency is like the bow that bends but will not break. So having that moment of being able to be flexible, being able to accommodate, that is what is showing the fact that that in itself articulates on the health and the viability of the energy in the divine union frequency. Because it's that moment that almost says there isn't a restriction in how that effectively forms. It has to come through in relationality to how the energy within the frequency feels is best for them at each moment. So we see even now that that ability of being flexible, that ability of being able to accommodate, is potentially creating a lot of energetic pathwork here, specifically for masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Being adaptable, being flexible, coming through, again, their own power of control of their own desire center, right? Pulling back on their own desires to be able to meet the energy of the feminine that allows for that modification point of flexibility that suddenly creates that point of inspiration, right? This isn't a masculine that feels hindered in the pathwork of pulling back to meet the needs of the feminine. This is masculine that feels that like uptick of passion and creativity and ideas in terms of what that could effectively look like, right? It's like the branching out, if you will. Feminine energy experiencing that same modality right now, feeling and seeing that sense of, again, vulnerability that is evoked in having a masculine energy that you can see is adaptable to meeting your needs. What does that create in the feminine? It inspires the feminine to meet the masculine's own sense of resiliency. That is what's empowering the feminine energy to take more of that sense of like pushing into the unknown, because this isn't a feminine energy that's just feeling like, oh good, I see someone changing for my behalf. This is a feminine energy saying, I want to do that too. I want to also meet the energy of the masculine, being inspired in that way. So that is that energy of like the motor continuing to run, if you will. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This is a lot of that energetic breakthrough work that we see that you can only understand at the moment that you understand it, if you will. Coming into that sense of easement, like that moment of clarity, feeling when something feels like it is as easy as it is, it suddenly gives you a lot of perception on what wasn't easy, right? Suddenly the clarity's there. So like, again, it's almost like when you learn how to play an instrument and you know how to do it without thinking, suddenly you can look back on the energy that was like, all those moments before that and being like it only comes towards you when it feels like it's effortless. So even now there may be that energy right now that's experiencing something coming into the divine union frequency with like the effortlessness of some things in it is building a sense of observation and recognition on the past that did not provide that kind of layer or degree of easement. There's a lot of clarity and understanding of one's own self in the process. Masculine and feminine energy, and what we see here for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, there may be something that feels like some kind of energetic return here in the modality of some of the masculine energy. This is saying to me that there is some masculine energy right now that is moving from separation back into the divine union frequency, but this is almost that energy finding it within their own self, that intentionality of purpose suddenly amplifying to someone, again, especially if there's been a moment where someone pulled against their own passion center and moved into a state of intentionality. This is the energy of the masculine doing, if I did that once, I can always do that. I can always move in that way. I can allow my intentionality to guide me. So for a lot of this energy right now coming into divine union, this is masculine energy moving with a lot more intentionality and purpose potentially towards energetic connections, with the recognition of saying that person hasn't changed so much. I am finally ready because I recognize what I needed to change in my own self to be able to meet them. This is that clarification point that some of the masculine may be having, looking back now in conversations and being like, oh, I understand now. That's what they were trying to tell me. That's what they were trying to show me. That's what they were trying to say. That moment of understanding. Feminine energy coming in separation right now. That ability and that observation point, again, for some of that feminine energy is almost that moment of, again, feminine energy potentially moving away from some masculine energy at this moment going, they don't understand why I'm doing this. That's why I have to do this. Like, it's literally the feminine energy going, that's what's so frustrating about something. I know exactly why I'm doing this, or what I've been trying to say to someone, they don't understand. And the feminine almost coming into a space of saying, I recognize that the day may come when they understand and they will come back to me. I hold forth to that day. I'm energetically moving away from someone to help facilitate their own healing and understanding in that way. Is the feminine energy feeling the confidence in being able to move forward at this time? But what's beautiful about this energetic frequency of the feminine in separation is again, this is the feminine energy saying, I can't wait here for that day to come. I can aspire for it, I can hope for it, but I can't wait here for it. And instead, what's feminine doing? Feminine's finding new energetic connections potentially on the way, as is the masculine energy in separation that has made this difficult choice and is moving forward and letting them, feeling that success of one's own passion, almost being the success point for a lot of the masculine in separation is having that success point over your own passion, allowing your intentionality and integrity to overcome your own passion center, that is allowing for a lot of energetic breakthroughs right now for some masculine energy in separation. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Wands and our Eight of Swords in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with the King of Wands in its reversal. Now, masculine and feminine energy in separation. What is happening for the feminine energy right now that's in separation? What is so difficult potentially for some of that feminine energy in separation? It's not that moving forward right now It's not the fact that there isn't some kind of energetic connection here with past masculine energy. It's almost that moment of observing and recognizing the limitation in that energy. But what is the feminine energy doing right now in separation? Feminine energy is being very open, being very honest, being very clear, potentially to new energetic connections with masculine. Almost amplifying again, saying, my desire and aspiration for something had to recognize the reality of a situation or circumstance. So we see even now that is the feminine energy, like leading forth from a state of clarity, openness, integrity, almost saying to themselves, I recognize the difference between what I was within my power to change versus what was within my power to accept. And that's why a lot of that feminine energy, to a certain extent, is almost coming into that moment of personal accountability that almost feels like it's overly accounting for this, because this is the feminine energy saying, like, I couldn't change him. I couldn't change that. What is the feminine receiving right now if in separation? Masculine energy coming towards the feminine in a point of separation, and the masculine energy that's healed coming towards the feminine energy in separation. What is the masculine energy saying to affirm to the feminine? Your job shouldn't have to be to heal someone. Right? That's that hand. That's like that extension of the hand that's happening right now for a lot of the energy that's making new and like energetic connections right now in a moment that almost like feels like the express moment of like helplessness and saying, I couldn't fix it. What is the healed masculine energy saying to the feminine that they're encountering in that modality? It was never your responsibility to. It's not your responsibility to feel like you need to fix another energy. You should just be you should just be with the energy that's in the modality of being fixed. Why is the masculine energy saying that right now? This is the beautiful journey of the masculine in separation, potentially making new energetic connections with feminine. Masculine saying, I know that type of energy. I used to potentially even be that type of energy. I used to move in that modality, or I've seen expressions of that modality, because this is the masculine that is now coming through and saying, I don't allow the expression of my need to articulate upon the connection. My need isn't the prioritization point of connection. I have learned to be able to let my intentionality be prioritized over my passion. And that is leading to the new energetic connections of masculine and feminine potentially right now. They're potentially coming out of separation back into the divine union frequency. And what's happening, and even now, that ability right now, the masculine being able to find the feminine in that modality, these are two energies that are on the same journey. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency right now. This is the gift that the feminine is seeing in alignment with a lot of the masculine that they're coming into divine union frequency with. It's not the fact that the masculine doesn't have a passion center. Feminine is recognizing the difference between a masculine that utilizes their intentionality to drive, that prioritizes their intentionality over their passion center, versus feminine suddenly recognizing, experiencing those spaces or places wherein masculine energy was allowing the passion center to override their thinking. Like override their thinking. Like what happens when the passion center overrides things? It overrides things. It's like it doesn't even make any sense. So even now, the feminine energy feeling and experiencing that to a certain extent is like, it creates that sense of understanding. Right? It's almost the feminine coming into that space of observation and comparison. But feminine's not doing that in a space or place of heavy judgment here. This is almost feminine energy, almost feeling like they're coming into a better understanding as they come into that frequency, because they can see things from a different perspective. And that's the feminine energy almost looking back with almost a little bit of energetic heaviness in terms of what they allowed themselves to energetically navigate, right? That's the difference between feminine saying, I don't want to facilitate a masculine being in a modality where they haven't learned how to conquer their own passion center. That doesn't create a productive space for the masculine. That's the feminine always saying, like, I feel like I'm crippling the masculine by doing that because it doesn't allow the masculine to become into their best version of self. That's the feminine energy coming into the deeper understanding of their own journey as they come into the divine union frequency. Masculine, you may be having that breakthrough moment in relationality coming into the divine union frequency, even now, because this is that moment, especially as you get that energetic understanding of the past version of self, that you're allowing your intentionality of purpose to guide you. And a lot of that may be encountering those past versions of self, where you may be looking back with a little bit of like note taking on how you may look at that past version of self that may felt like they knew everything, but now you're realizing it was almost like moving yourself in a space or place of just letting your desire lead the way instead of your intentionality. The energy in the divine union frequency, this is the energetic evolution, if you will, of the relationship itself. For a lot of the masculine energy right now and feminine, there's a lot of conversation potentially evolving in where you may have been when you first entered the divine union frequency versus where you are now. And what's interesting about this is almost like that youthfulness that's coming through right now for a lot of the masculine energy, which is almost like the masculine energy to a certain extent, feeling that like moment of energetic liberation, if you will. Because this is that masculine energy feeling the value and power of almost like allowing some of that like creativity to come into play. And it's almost that moment that for the masculine, it's that point that we see. Remember I said for a lot of the masculine energy right now, it's almost like the masculine energy saying to the feminine in some way, you know, like, I'm really glad that I had to slow something down here for you. I'm really glad that I had to pull back in this way, because this is the masculine energy that's now looking back at the past version of self and being like, no, that wasn't the way. This is the way. I just had a breakthrough. Like I just had a breakthrough. And it came from, again, hitting a challenging space, right? Having something that was like almost like ground tested, but in a way that someone's doing it energetically and kindly. Feminine, seeing this part of masculine, seeing an adaptability point of masculine, seeing a masculine that's able to take that like negative and transform it into a positive, is being inspired in the same way, right? That's the feminine energy. Again, meeting the masculine, because this is a feminine energy that almost says to the masculine, I love that you will change for me, but I also don't want to make you become something that you're not. I want to meet you as well, right? So there's that beautiful energy here of two energies that are putting a lot of consideration in. It's not the fact that they're not changing on behalf of the other, but they're almost saying, you don't have to do that for me. I don't want to see you move too far off of your own mark. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 8 of Swords and our 5 of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify. Clarification coming through right now with our 10 of Cups in its reversal. So this is that moment of easement, because this is the shifting of plans. Masculine and feminine energy. What's really lovely about this is that moment or modality that is almost looking and recognizing the difference between where you may have started and where you are now, and anything that you are looking at right now. This is why we see that this is a path of discernment. This is one of those moments that a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency is addressing, that says we're going to address even the smallest thing now, because there's the recognition point that the small thing that is not addressed now can basically become the very, very big thing that becomes a much bigger problem later. This is that idea of like not wanting that like little pebble to roll down the hill and become like much bigger, right? So that's why we even see right now, it may feel like a lot of sensitivity happening right now in the divine union frequency, but it's all for the preservation of the long-term manifestation goals. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency, this is going to feel more like clarity and breakthrough of understanding in potentially trying to work for around situations or scenarios in the past that you may have recognized one of the reasons something wasn't working was potentially that you weren't necessarily managing or navigating the same manifestation goals, right? It's suddenly that moment of having like that dawning sense that if like something, again, if something always felt like it was a bridge too far, the inevitable logic is suddenly recognizing and realizing maybe you are on very different bridges. And that point of clarity is what's coming towards a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency that, again, is allowing for a lot of energetic unpacking along the way. Masculine and feminine energy that are in separation right now, this could be literally telling someone right now, in one way, shape, or form, either coming into a healing moment with someone as you move away from someone, or facilitating a new energetic connection, saying something basically in relationality of saying, if everything feels like it is a bridge too far with you, then maybe we are on different bridges, right? Potentially making new energetic connections and saying, I am here making a new energetic connection because I realized and recognized that everything that I was asking for, my needs, my desires, always felt like it was a bridge too far. And I had a breakthrough moment. I was like, we're on different bridges. We want different things. These are two paths that are not coming into alignment. And what is the other energy that you're potentially meeting right now in separation saying? Same. Right? Yeah, I got off the bridge that wasn't my bridge, and someone goes same, right? And that's that moment that you're finding each other at a moment that you're saying I was on the wrong bridge, right? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 5 of Wands in its reversal in combination with our 3 of Wands in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. We've got here the clarity, right? It's like when you realize it, it's like boing, like it feels like it's like one of those moments, right? And this is the thing I'm getting here. A lot of this energetic, like clearing out of karma is like one of those breakthrough moments that you effectively like realize and recognize that like once you understand it, like once it hits, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? Like it's giving a lot of that type of energy here. So for a lot of the energy in this modality, this is what's almost happening too, because like it's one of those moments, and this is why we see a lot of these like energetic connections that are potentially forming right now, coming out of separation. It's like, you know what? Like when you start to explain it to someone else, suddenly it becomes profoundly clear to you. We see even now that there may be a lot of that karmic clearing up that's happening right now in terms of like identifying and trying to talk to someone about some kind of energetic story where you are trying to make peace in a place of continual conflict. But always hitting that wall was like that moment of someone basically saying, and then I had the breakthrough moment that I realized that like, you know, if I was, like I said, if everything's a bridge too far, it's because we're on different bridges. That was that moment. A lot of energy is saying basically in separation right now. I had this clarifying moment that I realized that we wanted very different things. So we see here that a lot of that energy that's coming into healing is almost building this new energetic bridge with someone by saying, well, what do you want? Like, let's see it. Like, show me. Like, let's talk about what that was that you aspired for, right? Because that is that moment that is the amplification of coming into authenticity and expression. So there may be a lot of new energetic connections that are happening right now, trying to be as honest and open as possible about what it is that you truly aspire. And it's going to be a lot of that forward-leaning conversation, the conversation about talking about what you aspire to have, because you've recognized that energetically you may have found yourself in the past, if in separation, having not had the conversation that you should have had, that suddenly realized that there was an impasse in relationality to what you aspired for versus what someone else aspired for. So a lot of honesty potentially coming into play right now. This is either in the closure point of past connections, basically having to say to someone, if everything feels like we are pulling at each other so difficult, so hard, maybe it's because we truly don't desire the same things. Letting that be almost that closure point. Or this moment of building new energetic connections by articulating and saying everything that I asked for, everything that I needed, the other energy told me was too much. It was a bridge too far. And the feminine or masculine saying, that's when I realized I was on the wrong bridge. Continuing, masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union. This is the observation of potentially anything that happened prior to this that caused that experience. While for masculine and feminine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, that is in partnership right now. This is that point of clarity and refocusing by talking about what those aspirations are, what those goals are, what are those desired outcomes, and recognizing the hindrances that may be presently creating a blockage to being able to move towards that desired outcome. Because inevitably, for a lot of the energy in divine union, the question that needs to be begged and asked is, if there is an aspired or desired manifestation goal, and there's something that is blocking and preventing it, is this something that can come into immediate modification? Or is this something that is creating a limitation point and being able to move towards that as effectively? So a lot of difficult but important conversations, all for the sake of overcoming unnecessary blockages. Next card between our Three of Wands in combination with our Justice card. Judgment card, not Justice, apologies. One card to clarify. Victory, success. So what happens when we do the hard part first? I have to point out, again, the energy in the divine union frequency isn't turning a blind eye to things, right? This isn't the type of energy that goes, maybe if I don't look at it, it won't be there. The masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency is doing very much the opposite, saying, look, I love you. That's why we're going to confront this. We're not going to turn a blind eye on each other. We're not going to do that for each other, because this is the masculine and feminine almost saying to each other, you know, the minute that we turn a blind eye to each other is the minute that we've almost energetically abandoned one another. That's that moment that we try to say, I don't care, or I'm going to try not to care. That like immediately starts to lead to separation. So even now we see that the ability to observe and say, I'm going to have that difficult conversation. We're going to sit and do that difficult work now. That is the affirmation, if you will, of the energy saying, I am committed to finding that path of success, even in the space and place that feels like it is hard to do so. Masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union, that are doing that work. This ability in terms of recognizing what did not work in the past is reaching clarity now in the fact that you're experiencing success in the present. Like that insight, that understanding, a lot of it of the past coming back to the surface now so that you can reconsider it in the light of where you find yourself presently. While for masculine, and that is also a form of karmic clearing. Potentially shedding any karma that you've been carrying the wrong way. Masculine and feminine energy that is in separation, this is that viability point. This is that moment of acceptance that allows for a lot of clearing of a karmic hurdle, because that is not a moment that you look at someone or something and say, I don't care about that person. That's not a karmic clearing of a cycle. That's a denial of one's own emotional space. You don't just say, I don't have that room in my house anymore. This is that moment of saying, I can hold all of the space that I want, all of the love, all of the empathy for someone, and recognize that we want very, very different things, or we're in very, very different places. So we see even now that a lot of the energy in separation is trying to have that hard work to say this to someone who may not necessarily recognize and realize or understand this right now, or because they're not there. Like saying to someone, we are in different places, and someone saying, no, we're not, might be in a way like almost the amplification of someone saying, this is too hard, and the other person being like, no, it's easy, and someone being like, no, if it's hard for me and it's easy for you, that is the expression of us literally being in two different places. While for masculine and feminine that are coming into new energetic connections right now, almost amplifying and articulating this, potentially even saying, I was having a lot of problems. Someone thought everything was fine. That in itself may be creating these like energetic pathworks of productivity, because that was that moment of basically saying we were in different places. We were occupying the same space, but we were living very different lives in that modality. We were experiencing very different things. And that ability of understanding that to a certain extent is what is allowing a lot of this energetic breakthrough, if you will. Because it's almost coming into a point of saying, I don't want that right now. I don't want to be occupying a space with someone and feeling like we're living in very different worlds, right? So we see that a lot of that energetic connection that's coming into play right now is almost potentially articulating and amplifying on that. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Wands in its reversal and our Ten of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Cups. Coming into acceptance of what doesn't work allows you to find that point of gratitude, right? It doesn't mean that you abandon all of that hope in relationality to there being a point of gratitude here. A lot of the energy in divine, in separation right now is moving through that modality of recognizing that one is doing what one feels is best, even if it doesn't feel like it is energetically easy. That is why we see that for a lot of this energy right now that's in separation, this feels like a lot of movement onto a path of integrity. Because this is that recognition point, even at a time that you're doing it, especially for some of the feminine energy right now, there could be that moment of a masculine that almost is articulating to you in the process, why are you creating problems where problems ought not exist? Like, why are you doing this? Like someone's trying to come towards you from that mentality of need. And this is almost that feminine energy trying to say to a certain extent, I hope you understand someday. I hope you recognize I'm doing what I really truly feel is best for all of us, yourself included, right? While for the masculine, this is the same energy potentially in separation. That masculine energy that's potentially looking towards a feminine that may want to desire to be with you, but you're realizing that they feel like everything feels like a bridge too far in order to be with you. That's because masculine, you may be feeling like you have all the love in the world for a feminine, but you're realizing that you want and aspire for different things. That is also a masculine saying, I hope you understand that I'm doing this because I care about you, but I don't want to live in a space or place that it feels like, we're trying to change too much to be able to facilitate a partnership. So we see even now that both of these energies right now potentially making new energetic connections, having to have a lot of difficult conversations about the difficult choices that they had to make leading up to this point, most articulated in the idea of effectively saying, I had to do the hard thing, but that I knew was the best thing. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union, the minute that you find that, the minute that you arrive there, a lot of energy right now, building those new energetic bridges, starting to come into divine union a lot faster now, is immediately creating a breakthrough moment when you start to build that with someone in terms of potentially looking at past connections and either realizing that the connection itself was requiring you to change too much to be like of your integral self to be within it, or that you were trying to pull someone onto path work with someone who is trying too much to follow their desires to the hilt as opposed to moving with intentionality. So for both of these energies right now coming into divine union, a lot of deeper understanding on your own personal path work that is the hallmark of coming into the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine energy that is in the divine union frequency right now, this is that moment. I told you, energetic correction. Looking at things and almost like saying to oneself, is this functional? Does this get us to our endpoint? Does this get us to our manifestation goals? If not, what is preventing the desired long term from being the desired now? What do we need to facilitate? What do we need to fix? What do we need to accommodate for? What do we need to heal? Having that point of recognition is literally what we're seeing that a lot of the energy right now in the divine union is doing in building that sense of saying, how can we make tomorrow today? How can we make that moment that we're aspiring for here? And for both energies right now, it's figuring out that point of what is the limitation factor that's preventing that from occurring. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ten of Cups in its reversal and our Moon card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with that. This is what we're seeing right now, right? This is a little bit of that tricky point that we're seeing even for the energy in the divine union frequency. And it has to do with the comfort level of the counterpart energies. Because as we identified right now, a lot of clarification that's potentially coming through right now, even in the divine union frequency, that is requiring a lot of conversation about what one's manifestation goals are. Because just as we have to acknowledge this, just as we've acknowledged and recognized that the energy is observing that they have changed from the time that they entered the divine union frequency to where they find themselves now, so is it potentially possible that as you've done so, not only have you changed, but your aspirations have changed, your desires, your manifestation goals have changed. So what is the energy in the divine union frequency doing? They're having difficult conversations about whether the manifestation goals are still the same, to identify and articulate what might need a point of accommodation or adaptation. accommodation or adaptation. What is that going to look like? Something, accommodation, something that is outside of us to change. Adaptation, something that is within our power to transform. So a lot of this work right now in the divine union frequency is looking at things that feel like they're blockages and saying, is this a situation or scenario that requires accommodation or adaptation? One or the other. It's difficult work. It requires a lot of assessment of self, showing each other things that may be hard to see, but all for the sense of coming into better alignment. Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, you are recognizing potentially situations and scenarios from the past that either were working because of an immodification point between accommodation or adaptation. Maybe potentially feeling like in the past you were too willing to take something that should have been an accommodation point for an energy that was in alignment and trying to transform it into an adaptation point. That would be a representative in a feminine trying to change too much to become in alignment with a masculine that's only following their passion center. For masculine, this would be coming into a space of trying to put up a false front instead of being open and honest with the feminine. Both of these energies recognizing and working through this breakthrough point in feeling the easement of an energy that is able to match you in that frequency. Masculine and feminine energy in separation. This is that moment that is feeling like a lot of the energy right now is potentially coming into a point that is basically saying to another person, this is requiring too much accommodation or adaptation, right? Because we see here that a lot of that energetic frequency for the feminine, this is almost the feminine energy saying to a certain extent, nothing I could do could make them happy. Nothing I could do was ever enough. I couldn't change enough to be able to accommodate their desire. For a lot of the masculine energy, and this could be feminine potentially expressing this towards a masculine right now. For a lot of the masculine, this could be also masculine, building new energetic connections, saying, there was nothing I could give them that would make them happy. There was nothing I could provide for them that was creating that sense of easement, that there was something about me having to to giving, that is the energy that we're seeing here of energy right now that's in separation, that is almost saying to another energy, it's not from the need base here. Someone saying, I can't give enough here. There was nothing I could give that would create that sense or space of contentment. And that is that moment that, again, a lot of the energy is almost saying, I can feel all the love and passion for you in my heart. I can hold you deep in my heart for the rest of my life, but I can also acknowledge that if you haven't found that happiness within your own self, there's very little I can provide that'll give it to you. And so we see here that for a lot of the energy, that moment of accommodation and acceptance, that's why it feels like that expression of love to say to someone, I hope you find that happiness so that you know where to find me, right? But even at that same time, a lot of these energetic connections, new energetic connections happening at a moment that feels like someone's carrying a very deep emotional wound, that feels like the expression of saying, I couldn't do anything to fix it. Nothing I could do was ever enough to fix it, right? And that's that moment of saying, if nothing I could do was enough to fix it, potentially that's because someone was carrying a wound so deep that there's only one person who is capable of fixing it. And that moment of acknowledgement is why we see a lot of the energy right now is kind of giving that gentle shove and saying, I hope you can fix that. And when you do, find, that's the energetic equivalent of saying, that's that moment of saying, that point of saying, that isn't that point of saying I'm karmically abandoning someone. That's saying I'm doing the thing that's hard, but I feel is the only thing that can be done. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our moon in its reversal in combination with our ace of swords. That clarity that allows for a moment of potential breakthrough. What happens in that moment? Being able to look at oneself, even in separation, and say, if you gave everything you could to something and it couldn't come into healing, This is that leveling of karma, because this is that energetic moment that comes through that says that failure point isn't what you are giving forth. If you were doing everything functional to try to meet someone else's needs, that's that moment of ascertaining that you may have been taking on too much karmic burden, right? That is that moment of, again, the giving of love that doesn't facilitate healing, but just almost allows for something to continue to not move in an unhealed way, right? This is that moment that almost says, like, I need to step back from something for the hope that it will facilitate something more positive to come forward from it. So we see even now, for a lot of this energy and separation, this feels like a lot of heavy path work, because this is that moment of saying, like, I need to do this, because this is the only thing that's effective energetically left to do. But we see that even doing so right now is immediately coming into internal acceptance, right? That is that movement that we're seeing that allows for that karmic clearing out of a cycle. But it's not a clearing out moment. It's the acceptance of saying, I recognize that this is the right thing to do, even if it is the difficult thing to do. A lot of energy going through this right now in separation. A lot of energy potentially coming into breakthrough points, coming into divine union by potentially coming back towards someone and saying to them, equivalent of saying, I understand now. I understand that you were trying to facilitate that type of healing. I understand that I needed to find that journey on my own. I understand that I needed to go on that journey of growth for myself. I'm back to give it to you and tell you that. Some energy coming into divine union, either through an act of restoration with someone who has shown that they've done that work, not for the sense or sake of another person, but for their own self, or having that point of deep understanding on terms of a lot of the places and spaces in the path where that didn't occur, through hitting this like energetic moment of recognition on being able to come into a process of release and finding that energetic frequency that's in alignment to you, that suddenly brings a lot of clarity with it. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency. This is a lot of coming, like recognizing how far you have grown in the divine union frequency, accepting that you have energetically changed in the divine union frequency. Even that is a breakthrough, because that is almost that moment of saying, like, you're leaving room and you're leaving a point of accommodation and adaptation in relationality to how much you yourself and another counterpart energy has grown in the space and time of being with one another. That is, like, again, that assessment point in realizing that another energy has facilitated your growth and development energetically and spiritually. But it also, like, requires a reassessment, because you realize that you've grown so far in the expression of being with another. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Nine of Cups in combination with our Lover's card in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through. Transformation. Telling you right now, the energy in the divine union, it's elastic, it's flexible, it allows for energetic transformation. That is that shedding that feels like, again, things move, you move through a process of recognizing what doesn't serve you so that you can recognize what does. A lot of this transformational energy that's occurring right now in the divine union frequency, but the beauty of it is not wanting to, like, focus or get caught in some kind of past version of self or some past version of what you felt like the expression of the partnership needed to be. Your ability to almost look and say in a healthy way in the divine union frequency, we have changed, we have grown. We don't need to fear that. We just need to accept that and recognize, how do we want to do that further? What do we need to accommodate more? What isn't serving us? What is serving us? I told you, it's that energetic cleaning, as it were, that's happening right now for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency. And it's requiring a lot of difficult conversations. It's requiring a lot of difficult conversations of the self and a lot of difficult conversations in the partnership itself. But even so, we see that that is that moment that feels like it's amplifying the productivity and the purpose, which is, again, positive, productive transformation and growth. Masculine and feminine energy. This is that moment that potentially feels like a moment that you yourself are transforming, like your ability to come into the divine union frequency It's almost like the clearing up of a lot of those past cycles, if you will, because the observation point, the gift of being in the divine union frequency, is you suddenly get further clarity on anything that wasn't leading to it. It helps you almost like close a lot of those chapters, if you will, because it's not the fact that there hasn't been things that haven't led to that in the past, but the understanding of the self in the moment that you find yourself in is now building a lot of clarity on why those things didn't necessarily work out the way that you aspired or desired them to. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is that moment that feels very difficult. This is a moment of deep transformation, as we saw, but that transformation may be coming most articulated into a point of acceptance, potentially looking at something and saying, despite my best efforts, we could not come into alignment, doesn't negate the ability or the hope that something might change in the future. But this is almost that moment of someone saying, I need to accept that in this moment in time, this is not creating a viability point, and that is allowing that point of transformation, because that's that moment of saying, doesn't say it won't ever always be like that, but it's certainly not like that now, right? So we see even now for a lot of the energy right now in separation, this is that moment that feels like that transformational process is actually happening within, and it's coming through in your own sense of being able to accept circumstances with that harsh reality or with that harsh understanding, but also with the state of gratitude and openness and compassion and love, right? This is the difference of saying, like, I hate you, I never want to see you again, versus someone saying, I care about you deeply, but I don't think we're in the same place, and I don't think that this is serving our best intentions or our highest version of self. So we see even now that if there are some closing out of cycles that's happening right now in separation, there's a lot of positivity for the sake and hope of positive transformation. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Our Lover's card in its reversal in combination with our Wheel of Fortune. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with this card like hotcakes recently. We've got our Four of Swords in its reversal. So again, it's not the fact, this isn't a point where you're just like looking at the past and saying, I'm not going to look at it. This is that point that you're really focusing and allowing yourself to look at the past, to be able to get that sense of clarity. Both even in, I have to stress this, even in the new energetic connections that are happening now. This isn't moving into a new energetic connection and pretending that nothing happened prior to this point. This is almost the energetic connection saying, I want to tell you about this now to avoid what might be a situation or circumstance later that I just left because we didn't navigate these things at the time that they came up. So this is almost like, I have to stress, a lot of energy that's coming, that's in separation, almost having a lot of new energetic connections that are very much invested in the path work that previously led to this point. Because this is almost trying to articulate and to say to someone, this is why we see this happening. These energies in separation right now, these energies are not energies that don't desire to be in union. This is energy that's almost trying to say to someone, do you want the same things I want right now? Because the recognition point of saying, I know that there's a lot of other people out there that aren't on the same path that I'm on. So let's figure out if we're on the path before we even progress down this road. Why? Because a lot of the energy in this healing cycle is saying a lot of the problems or the circumstances that may have led to separation were potentially going down the road with someone and suddenly realizing that you were on two different roads, right? So being able to have these conversations sooner rather than later, this is going to feel like a lot of like ripping the Band-Aid off, getting like very energetically invested with someone sooner for the sake of not repeating a karmic pattern. Masculine and feminine, and this for the energy that's moving away from someone right now, this is that moment of saying, like, listen, I'm not leaving that possibility not open that something might be able to heal further down the line. Anything is possible, but also saying, I cannot wait inevitably for that day to come. That's why we see a lot of this energy right now is just progressing forward, while even still like, you know, having some of that moment, like holding space in their heart in recognizing like what didn't serve or what wasn't working, right? Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency right now. This is the breakthrough point in understanding anything that didn't lead to that at the moment that you experience and come into the divine union frequency. While masculine and feminine energy right now that are in the divine union frequency, this is that immediate assessment, bringing up things from the past. But again, not in a way that you're accusing or holding it against someone, but almost trying to show, I keep telling you, something about the divine union frequency right now is being able to show someone a clear mirror of their own self. And when I say a clear mirror, that doesn't mean the clear mirror of what you aspire or desire someone to be. Almost saying, I know this is who you aspire and desire to be. I'm showing you some things that you may have a blind spot on that may help you facilitate and come into a better aspect of your own person. That is that hard work that we do for each other. And even now, it's that moment of saying, like, I'm telling you something that I know may be hard to hear, but doing so and saying, I'm doing that out of an act of love. Because it would be the opposite of love to turn a blind eye to something that I think knowing would help you in the long run, right? So we see even now that heavy path work right now happening for a lot of the energy in the divine union. Final card for today's spread, between our death card in combination with our Four of Swords in its reversal. One card to clarify, please. Clarification coming through right now with Two of Pentacles in its reversal. Very not surprised to see this at all, because again, the value and importance about doing this type of path work right now, if you're in the divine union frequency, is again, there's differences between bringing up something to try to like pull someone into your own direction versus doing something to say, what can we do to merge our directions even more? A lot of the energy right now in the divine union frequency. This is like, I have to stress what's happening right now. This is the energy in the divine union frequency starting to recognize things that may feel like they're going to eventually pull them potentially apart. What is the energy in the divine union frequency doing? Stopping it before it starts. Navigating it, addressing it, maybe even like overly addressing something at that moment, because this is the energy that is almost recognizing in the divine union frequency, like almost that moment that feels like someone saying to another, I know I'm sweating the small stuff, but the small stuff, if it rolls down the hill, will get bigger and bigger. Better to address something now before it becomes better to address something that is starting to become a small problem now, rather than it become like a giant circumstance that we can't navigate or avoid in the long run, right? So a lot of that path of discernment right now for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency is being built on a lot of the energetic experiences potentially from the past of someone recognizing and identifying places and spaces on their own path work wherein they may have felt like they turned a blind eye to something that ultimately ended up leaving them blind, right? This is almost the energy saying to themselves, like in the divine union frequency, we're not going to turn a blind eye to something, because that's how we end up like not seeing something. So we see even now the energy in the divine union frequency working on building that path of clarity, that path of observation, that path of being able to navigate. And some of it, though, is feeling like looking at the energetic equivalent that you're in the alignment with and saying, I can see something that potentially you yourself can't see. And doing so and saying, bringing that forward, having that moment of conversation to allow for that alignment to come back into play, right? To help focus and align and center both of the energies in play to be able to make sure that the goals are being met. And again, that isn't, again, one energy deciding and the other energy going along with it. It is finding that meeting point where both counterpart energies feel like they are moving in the same directionality. Masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union right now. These are the breakthroughs that you're potentially reaching right now as you feel that merging of paths. Like as you feel the alignment of what it actually feels like to be in alignment with an energy, the easement, it suddenly creates a lot of stirring up of past situations because you're looking at all of those things with a renewed eyes, clearer eyes. It's like someone gave you your glasses. Masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is that either point of acknowledgement, if there's some type of energetic signature here that you're trying to heal with, looking at something and saying, is there any possibility of these two energies or paths coming together? That's what I mean about the fact that someone's holding space and saying, I can care about someone profoundly, but recognize that our paths do not merge. And that's why we're having a volatility point. It's because we're both trying to yank the other one on our own path, versus looking at something and saying, we want the same thing, we just have different ways of going about it. So even now we see that there's either some kind of energetic closure happening right now. And so in terms of saying to someone, do you truly aspire and desire for what I aspire and desire in the long term? Or do we need to accept that the reason that there's some volatility between us is because we have very different aspirations in terms of what we want to manifest going forward? So even that, it's requiring some addressing of the past, but it's immediately allowing for closure. And it's also the start of new energetic beginnings, which may be requiring a lot of energy that's meeting each other in this vibration, having some very deep conversations about what you desire in the long term to almost make sure that that alignment is there prior to building the energetic connection. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now, it's not easy. It's heavy. It's heavy energy. Because here's the thing, I need to stress here. We see that a lot of the energy right now is doing the hard part first, right? You're doing the heavy homework before you do the easy stuff. But that's that moment that we see across all the frequencies right now that feels like a little bit of that Band-Aid rip moment, saying, I'd rather have something unpleasant now to avoid something catastrophic in the future. So we see a lot of that energetic signature happening now, which almost feels like, I want to say, like the lesser of two negatives, which is like, what is worse, to have a hard conversation now, or to have something like really off or misaligned in the future? To meet someone now and just assume something instead of having an uncomfortable conversation now that could lead to like better alignment in the future? We see across all of it, it is kind of like feeling like you're just getting your hands like in the mud to begin with, because like in a way you're that's what this is kind of calling towards right now. Not being afraid to navigate the difficult stuff, because if you can navigate the difficult stuff, then imagine how easy it'll be to navigate the easy stuff. That is our daily collective energy read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you would like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will do this again tomorrow.